everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Maureen Wiley, a professor of composition and someone who loves to learn about things and then make videos for YouTube. It's the start of a brand new semester and the start of a new year, which is generally a time when many people are thinking about the goals and the way they want to show up in their life for the coming year. Over my own winter break, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I wanted certain things to be different in the year 2024. And one of those main things was that I wanted to show up differently in my classes, and I wanted to no longer come from such a place of perfectionistic thinking. So in today's video, I wanted to offer anti-perfectionistic mantras for students going into the new semester. You are not your grades. Something I notice among almost all of my students is an intense focus on scores, percentages, and overall grades. It makes sense that my students are really focused on their grades. We live in a perfectionistic culture that tells them they have to get the highest marks, they have to get the best possible grades in order to achieve anything in their lives, be able to earn the degrees they'd like to earn, get the jobs they'd like to have, make the kind of money they'd like to make, and overall feel that they are safe and secure in their future path. But when we have the kind of thinking that our grades determine who we are, or on a more fundamental level, that our grades determine our value or our worth, or even how we should feel about ourselves, it can often lead to a loss of the ultimate reason why we're earning an education, which is to develop ourselves into a greater understanding of both ourselves and the world at large. The problem with identifying with your scores and your grade means that your self-esteem is based on this premise that you have to be able to do things perfectly the first time around. And that is not how things work in the rest of life. In fact, the people who tend to be the most successful in whatever pursuits they have in their life are the people who understand on a deep fundamental level that their failures and their accomplishments are not what make them who they are. So if you're a student and you're really focused on your grades, I'm not telling you that you should completely disregard your grades. We do live in a world where, unfortunately, those things can be rewarded or often fixated on by others. However, I do want to also encourage you to try your best to de-identify yourself from your grades and your scores. And in the meantime, to find other things to consider to be the reasons why you are studying, or perhaps the values that you want to show up with as a learner, or even the characteristics about yourself that you want to use as the basis for your self-definition. So instead of basing my sense of self around things like my accomplishments, my grades, or if you're no longer a student, things like the number in your bank account or your credit score, instead, I have decided to use curiosity as my guide. What are the topics or areas of interest where my curiosity really comes to life? What am I curious about to learn more about? And what makes me want to have that growth mindset that is so valuable as a skill to develop? I often tell my students that when you're earning an education, you're not necessarily only building your resume for future job prospects, you're building your mind. You are building your sense of self through the learning that you do and through the approach you take to the challenges in your path. Yes, to some degree, grades end up mattering in a small, actually much more limited than most people realize, amount of arenas of life. But what ends up mattering more is having some of these non-cognitive skills like growth mindset, grit, persistence, curiosity, openness to changing our perceptions, and even more than that, some skills that come from sitting with the emotions that come up when we have what we might consider a failure. Learning how to regulate our nervous system, learning how to process our emotions, learning how to separate out the story that we have about our experience versus the actual experience, the circumstance versus the narrative of our experiences. All of those things end up being useful in any arena of life where we are going to be faced with challenges, we're going to be faced with things that we are not familiar with, that we don't know how to do, that where we have to be a novice and we have to make mistakes, which, spoiler alert, turns out to be pretty much almost anything we ever do outside of classroom-based learning and skills-based testing. So part of using this anti-perfectionist mantra of you are not your grades involves determining how do you want to define yourself. I like to define myself as a lifelong learner, and that taps into this idea of following my curiosity, paying attention to the things that I want to learn more about, and enjoying that energy, enjoying that energetic pull that I feel towards topics that I want to learn more about. Seeing that as my goal in whatever pursuit I might have is to explore my curiosity makes me enjoy the process all along the way. And as a bonus, it also makes me resilient in the face of challenges, difficulties, and yes, failures.